Well, evening, fellow zombies and research students out there. Have we lost our minds yet? Because I know mine's still wandering around over here. Ha ha, Halloween joke. 11:16 at night. It's still the 23rd of October. It's still Monday. Counting down until midnight, and it doesn't feel like midnight. It feels like it's about 9 o'clock for me anyway. But this is the West Coast, and they're already taking an evening nap. So what the hell? This is the Weaver John C. of Rosamond, California, talking at you. Okay. What was driving me crazy today in the classes is maybe I'm not doing it as well as I should. Self doubt has a way of tearing apart a student's confidence left and right. If they're feeling that they're getting enough negative remarks on the damn thing and you're getting weird ass remarks from the professor, you kind of feel like, are you supposed to be there or not there in the first place in the class? I know because I had been experiencing that. There are times when I thought I could be a super person, a super student in there, just trudging away like crazy and doing something. But when I start missing steps, when I start taking a day off here or there because of something happening with me, then I feel like I've missed this, being the super person, down relegated to what the hell am I doing here in the first place? I'm not active in this thing anymore. What's going on? Where's my interest? Kind of an expensive thing to do. Start questioning yourself in the middle of a coursework or almost coming up to the end, and you're still asking, why am I doing this in the first place? I should just put the stops, I should just put the brakes on this damn thing and reevaluate. And the problem is, it's still continuing. And it has a cumulative effect on the GPA when I start going through that damn route. Now, I know I have a problem concerning about saying, well, you. Put this into a perspective over here. If I'm going to mean directly at you, then I should be rephrasing it to, I'm going to be directing it at you. But if I'm going to be watching this damn thing, I'm going to hear it's either going to be, well, I, or it's going to be you, meaning me. So let's get that one straight there. I know this class wasn't going to be easy. I have an English professor who understands the professor and the material, and she's heard a couple of students, me and another gentleman, who've griped about this one in her class before class started. Certain teachers out there who may have the nicest personalities that got the quirkiest material to teach students, whether or not it's going to be academically needed or not, I don't know, but it's something of a rubric. It's something of a course requirement that I need to graduate with. I needed a math class. I am not hip on the intermediate and experienced algebra classes. I will need to take 8 to 10 week course or roughly of that of individual non-credited study periods of how to get up to speed on algebra. I have had decades of hating algebra and trying to figure the logic out in the first place. I can understand about a plus b equals x. Solve for x. There are different formats of trying to figure out what x is all about. And math for liberal arts, it's convoluted. It's convoluted. The professor is trying to show some quick and easy steps, according to him. I'm looking at this stuff and I'm thinking, no, this is more complicated, more convoluted than physics. If I wanted to study physics, I'll study physics. But the problem is, I need to know more in math to get up to that level. A common lay person would be understanding about, or barely understanding about how to balance their own checkbook, theoretically. Now, if I understood something about the accounting procedures or accounting principles, I learned it from my mother, but I hadn't taken formal classes about how accounting actually works. I've taken a business course about it. It really doesn't help me much. Studying my mother did, but I also had a need to get the academia going in my head just to understand what the hell I'm looking at here. Okay, let's just say I need an example. I need an example. So give me a second here. What I'm doing is moving stuff out of a pocket here. Now you might ask me, why am I moving stuff out of a pocket here? Because there might be a lesson involved. And if there is a lesson involved, then I need to get some kind of examples going on that would help in our situation. I need to show something current, concrete, and money. Ah, you heard that, did you? Okay, what kind of a lesson does he have right now as it is? I wonder what kind of a lesson this is going to be. Until I actually get something going. A second. Okay, boys and girls, shall we begin? Okay, you're a young kid, or say you're not a young kid, you're just you. You want to open up a bank account. Now, these days, we can do it online. Or you want to do it the old fashioned way, you go into the brick and mortar and talk to an actual live human being. But before you do that, you need to have something that the bank will have that you'll be using all the time. So, we're going to call something of capital. Capital is something of worthwhile. An investment. You got an investment here. I have an investment here. I have maybe about a couple of bucks left in here. But let's just say that the bank will accept a couple of bucks. Normally they will do about 25, 30, depending on their regulations and rules and procedures and God knows what else got going. Okay? As much as I understand about it in the first place. But still, I have change. Bank will take change, put them rolled up, use them. This is the bank. I just gave the bank my money. I filled out paperwork for them. I want my money saved, and I'm putting it into investment where it will grow. And unfortunately, this isn't. But let's say if it was. This is the bank of the money jar. Okay, rules and regulations for the FDIC actually. Federal Deposit of Interstate Commerce, or something like that anyway. In the bank, you are contributing money to it. You get a way of tracking it. Now these days it's electronic. You can do whatever kind of form that you could use. But let's say we're going back in time before the computer was just coming into range regarding your money. We'd have ledger sheets, big monsters of them. Spreadsheets made. We'd have smaller books to write in. So now you started up your money in the account. This is your starting point. Hard for people to understand that one. That when banks, there's a certain procedure, a certain logic thing here. But it gets even worse. Now you got to start using all the mathematical processes you have concerning about adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Because now you got your money in the bank. You got your investment in there. Now what do we do? Well, in an investment fund, money would be accumulated by interest. However, if it's not, it's just a standard, basic, boring checking account. You have got to be the sole provider for that money coming in. Which means these days we have electronic deposit. We can hook up to an employer or we can hook up to federal or state or maybe another source of income. But it's going into your account. Therefore, it's going to increase the level. And you're marking this in an old-fashioned time with a book. These days, it's electronic. But in the book, we had to mark down. And then, if we have sufficient enough funds to utilize for a short time before we add more money to it, we would have to keep track of every cent goes in and out. And it has to tally up with what the bank is, otherwise we don't know what the hell's going on. Then the days of the ATM, we have the records necessary for that. We can figure out what they've already got programmed in the system of how much you've got. In the older days, it was paperwork, and you had to be meticulous on both sides. Everything had to match up. We had to have receipts to match everything else up. You had to hold on to your receipts to match everything else up. And in the book, we had two columns. They would call it a debit, and they would call it a credit. In the debit, we're taking the money out to pay for something. Let's just say I'm a kid. I'm going to a penny store. I'm taking 50 cents out of the pocket, of the bank, of my account. I've just taken 50 cents. You're wondering how come I'm reiterating that so much. Bear with me. In the paperwork, I have to make an indication that 50 cents is being taken out as a debit. So I'm 50 cents less in the account. Counting 101. Mathematics 101. Let's just say I'm a kid working at that point of doing odd jobs. And I earned the 50 cents back. Now I get to mark it in the book. I get to add it to the account. Am I putting you to sleep yet? This is how we deal with math. In the real world. We take money, we put money into the bank, we take money out of the bank, we put money back into the bank. I get a job. I'm going to put more money into this bank. I'm going to put more. I'm increasing the load. I make indications in an old-fashioned checkbook if I still have one those days. Or electronically it does it for me. But it'd be nice to get printouts every so often just to understand what the hell you got. Monthly would give you an indication of what's going on your day-by-day transactions, as long as they are recorded. Now, in these accounting books that we got, in these accounting situations we got here, we are also trying to keep track of our expenditures. Now, we already got the money in there. But we need to find out what our expenditures are, what we're spending the money on that's taking everything else out. We need to track this sucker. And once we find out how much we are spending compared to how much we're earning, shows you what the health of our accounting is, what our money is like. Keep this in mind. This is the kind of math we have to keep struggling with coming out of high school. Because this is the kind of math that people actually don't understand unless you've been doing this thing for a hell of a long while without the damn computer. And trust me, There's been generations doing that for a hell of a long time. And they keep track of it by putting information in books, notations, and stuff. This is the kind of math that I'm used to. Adding, subtracting into the damn bank account, seeing how much we got. Further into the accounting work, we find out what our expenditures are and we list them. We have them in subjects. Are they critical or are they non-critical? Are they just expenditures? For what reason? We have to keep track of this thing so we can understand the health of our banking, of our, not the complete system, but our own little internal system. Some people, it's kind of hard because they don't like to keep track of that kind of shit. I was raised with a bookkeeper, income tax specialist. So I've got to be aware what the hell is going on in my adulthood because this is going to be affecting me a great deal. Anyway, try explaining this to some of the crusty professors who have actually been through this kind of stuff. But the students these days, they are so into computers that it just doesn't register with them. Unless they take accounting classes to find out the reasons why. My mother was teaching Missy on the run. Was teaching me this on the run. I didn't study about this one in college. At home, working with her, yes. I mean, I went to a business school and tried to get the same information I got out of Ma on this one. And she was a smart cookie. What's the money I put into the bank here? I haven't counted it. My problem is I haven't kept track of this particular piggy bank. So I don't know what the bank of the jar holds. If this was done electronically, I would have seen the figures of what the hell's going on. And then do the calculations in my head of how much I've got left to spend or to save. Now, here's what I call about survival. Every month, I get a fixed lot. And every month, well, taking the school equation out, but every month I get a fixed amount. I got to see this fixed amount to the end. On one side, I've got income coming in on one side of the column, and on the other side, I got to keep track of all my expenditures, petty and the major ones. The major ones I look at first. What are the priorities necessary in order to keep this account healthy enough and viable enough to keep supplying what I need? I have to section it out. I put that money aside. I take that balance. I subtract it whatever I have currently. That gives me the working operation capital I need to continue on for the rest of the month. I do that every month. It's consistent. It's necessary. I figure out how much my rent is, how much the phone bill is going to be, how much the power bill is going to be, and what my entertainment cable is going to be like. Up the roof. Almost just as bad as paying rent. Well, they're getting more and more expensive with these companies out there. And in order to get the internet going, I need to go through a company to do it. Unless I'm going to be spending more money on other things that I don't have access to the equipment for. So I deal with what I got. But I have to keep juggling the figures in my head to make sure that everything else is right and get a ballpark figure what I'm dealing with, subtracting to what I've already got coming in. And then before it gives me the operating cash. And then I got to see that operating cash right there. Divide it every single day by the days I've got to see whether or not I've got enough money to spend for that particular section. This is the kind of mathematics I'm doing in my head without doing those kind of parentheses, brackets, and formula. My head's already doing it because I've been doing this. I take the amount that I got left over from doing the majors, separated from the income I've got, and then divided by the days. And when I look at it each day, then I have to start calculating. Is this going to be needed per day? If it is going to be needed per day, then I got to stretch it out. If I'm going to be needing this for food, basically getting food at the store, then I've got to partial it out maybe 2 or 3 days at a time. So I have to do some kind of word calculations in my head that's already working in there. And the problem is when it comes down for math classes, they want to see the calculations up front. This is the thing about the math classes that I'm taking at college. They want to see my thought processes on the paperwork. My calculations are already in my head already. I'm still figuring the stuff out. But they want to see how my head's working. Am I understanding their particular point of view? Their particular process, because they want me to put it in their particular viewpoint. And I'm looking at their viewpoint, and I'm seeing an alien language that does not compute. So maybe I'm not capturing it as well as I should, according to their academic schedules. But for me, I'm still doing pure survival. Next month, the allotment. I already got the Rubik, but the thing is, the expenditures fluctuate. Some are constant. Next month, things are going to be changed. The phone plan's changed. I've got modifications on it. That's going to help out a bit. The cable bill's gone up. I have to make modifications for that. The rent hasn't been increased yet, but next year it may. I have to make modifications to think about that, think ahead of time. But each month I have to think about the survival. So if I've got, let's see, this month is the 31st, next month is going to be the 30th, or is it also going to be the 31st? Because I know December is going to be the 31st, but what about November? Well, let me see about November. Let me see about November. Let me see about November. Or see about November. Okay, what do we got? Okay, so November's got 30th. That works. So at a time next month, I'm going to have whatever money I have left over from the last month, if there is going to be any. If there is going to be any at this point, then I've got to make sure that that's going to be stretching out for that month, because there may be some things or holiday things coming up that I may need. And then next month after that, it's going to be dealing with the holidays. Let's not open up that can of worms just yet. But we get my drift. I have to look at the days. I mean, it's going to be either the 31st or the 28th or the 30th. Now, the 28th is February. Some of the other months they have go up to the 30th or 31st. But from the time I receive the allotment and to the end of the days, I've got that time period. I got maybe 4 or 5 weeks if necessary. That means I have to calculate. Maybe I've got about 30 or 29, 20-ish days to utilize. So here comes the compartmentalization. We got to do the major expenditures first. And then see how much I've got left. And then divide that in how many days I've got between that particular period of time and at the end of end of the month. And that tells me how much I got to use for each month. If I don't, the amount increases. If I do use them, the amount decreases. Then I'm not going to have the resources necessary in order to take care of me. This is my mathematics I deal with on a constant basis. Am I going to have enough money for transportation to and from places? Am I going to have enough money to replace bottles of water? Am I going to have enough money to get material sent over the internet that I may or may not need? How much am I going to be needing for this? What if I need to get any more any more flash drives. Take that into account. The little expenditures, they usually eat things up left and right. If I take money just for personal usage out of it, that's going to be another expenditure. I still have to make accountabilities of what I have to utilize. Now try explaining that to a physics professor or a professor who's up there with the mathematics that probably a day by day probably blows him away unless he's using calculations left and right to figure things out. Who knows? A simple checkbook will throw people off left and right. But we had to do these kind of calculations by hand. We had to have smart people in our family to find out if we're doing this right or not. And I had a smart person. I actually had my mother, as I said before. She was a bookkeeping income tax specialist. She had to make sure that other people's monies were balanced. She worked for companies. She was an accountant controller in places. So she balanced people out. And don't get me started on the tax stuff because I barely understand the tax stuff anyway. Amortization. God, everything else going crazy on that damn thing, I swear. Everything decreases in value. You get a new car one day, in about 10 years, it's a piece of crap. Blue book value goes skyrocket. It goes plummeting. We get a brand new computer to work with. 5 years later, it's a dog antique relic. In technology, computers are relics. As soon as we get a new idea and we get the product out there, somebody else has already got something else. It's obsolete. It's antique, but we still use it. We just got to see how much life and credit is left in the tax situation in order to get as much as we can for deductions. If you got kids, there's stuff for that. I guess we are opening up that Pandora's box as much as I understand it. And I'm not even near it. I hadn't even taken any HR courses to understand this stuff because each state has their own way of figuring their own tax codes and their deductions and amortizations and God knows what else they got. My mother had to keep track of all that. She had books to help her keep track of all that. She had new material coming in. My God, we were just overwhelmed in this stuff. Well, it was electronic, new disc coming in. Load up the computer, get rid of the old information, put in the new information. Oh yeah, trying to be your IT guy. Oh, that was real fun. I couldn't program a damn computer, but I had to keep track of things in her own computer. Johnny, I need help. Yeah. But that's what I did. That's what I did. So, that's what I've done. Dealing with math for liberal science or liberal arts. Calculations, formula, Venn diagrams. You don't hear this in the streets. You don't hear this unless you're in the academia. Unless you're a math professor talking to other math professors, and they'll talk about this kind of crap. Or maybe you're in the halls of science classes and you're able to understand that stuff. Or maybe somewhere else. Sorry, I'm still dealing with the bug war out here. And yeah, that's how it seems to be. Well, I'll probably talk more about this damn thing when I get the other one going. So part 3 coming up.